Dear grade 11 students, how are you all? Today's lesson is the book Thief, part 8. As you know, part 8 is not part of the exam this term, but we're going to study it. The word shaker, just to have a background about what happened in this part, because we still have parts 9 and 10 for the last term. We are going to read part 8 only. You're not responsible for it in the exam. The word shaker, featuring these are some of the titles in this part: dominoes and darkness. Let me just maximize a little bit. In the words of Rudy's youngest sisters, there were two monsters sitting in the kitchen. Their voices needed methodically at the door, and three of the Steiner children played dominoes on the other side. The remaining three listened to the radio in the bedroom, oblivious. When you are oblivious, you forget everything. Rudy hoped this had nothing to do with what had happened at school the previous week. It was something he had refused to tell Liesel and did not talk about at home. You remember when he refused to win the last race, 100 race for 100 meters, and when she asked him why, he didn't answer her. A gray afternoon, a small school office, three boys stood in a line. Their records and bodies were thoroughly examined. When the fourth game of dominoes was completed, Rudy began to stand them up in lines, creating patterns that wound their way across the living room floor, as was his habit. He also left a few gaps in case the rogue finger of a sibling interfered, which is usually, or it usually did. Can I knock them down, Rudy? Can I make them fall down? No. What about me? Another sibling said. No, we all will. Okay? He made three separate formations that led to the same tower of dominoes in the middle. Together, they would watch everything that was so carefully planned collapse, and they would all smile at the beauty of destruction. Maybe this symbolizes something that will happen later. Sorry. I'll try to maximize it more in order to see clearly, because I'm far from the screen. That's okay, I think. Heard. Okay, so the kitchen voices were booming or becoming louder now, each heaping itself upon the other to be heard. Different sentences fought for attention until one person, previously silent, came between them. No, she said. It was repeated, no. Even when the rest of them resumed their arguments, they were silenced again by the same voice. But now it gained momentum, strength. Please, Barbara, Steiner, begged them. Not my vote. Can we light a candle, Rudy? It was something their father had often done with them. He would turn out the light and they'd watch the dominoes fall in the candlelight. It somehow made the event grander, a greater spectacle, a greater sight. His legs were aching anyway. Let me find the match. The light switch was at the door. Quietly, he walked toward it, and the matchbox, in one hand, the candle in the other. From the other side, the three men and one woman climbed to the hinges. The best scores in the class, said one of the monsters, such depth and dryness, not to mention his athletic ability. Damn it, why did he have to win all those races at the Carnival? Deutscher, Damn that Franz Deutscher. But then he understood. This was not Franz Deutscher's fault, but his own. He wanted to show his past tormentor what he was capable of. Again, remember that Franz Deutscher used to torment or punish Rudy in a silly way. Remember when he painted his body, even his face, with the feces, of the cow, which is called manure, M-A-N-U-R-E, the feces of animals. But he also wanted to prove himself to everyone. So Rudy, winning the first 3 races, wanted to prove himself to his past tormentor, Franz Deutscher, and to everyone. Now everyone was in the kitchen. He lit the candle and switched off the light. Ready? But I've heard what happens there. This is the speaker. That was the unmistakable, okay voice of his father. Come on, Rudy, hurry up. Yes, but understand, Herr Steiner, this is all for a greater purpose. Think of the opportunities your son can have. This is really a privilege. Rudy, the candles dripping. He waved them away, waiting again for Alex Steiner, his father. He came, privileges, like running barefoot through the snow, like jumping from 10-meter platforms into 3 feet of water. Rudy's ear was pressed to the door now. Candle wax melted onto his hand. Rumors, the arid voice, low and matter of fact, had an answer for everything. Our school is one of the finest ever established. It's better than world class. We're creating an elite group of German citizens in the name of the Führer. Rudy could listen no longer. He scraped the candle wax from his hand and drew back from the splice of light that came through the crack in the door. When he sat down, the flame went out. Too much movement, darkness flowed in. The only light available was a white rectangular stencil, the shape of the kitchen door. He struck another match and reignited the candle. He lit it again. The sweet smell of fire and carbon. Rudy and his sisters each tapped a different domino, and they watched them fall until the tower in the middle was brought to its knees. It was collapsed. The girls cheered, hey. Kurt, one of his brothers, his older brother, arrived in the room. They look like dead bodies, he said, about the dominoes falling on the ground. What? Rudy peered up at the dark face, but Kurt did not answer. He noted the arguing from the kitchen. What's going on in there? It was one of the girls who answered, the youngest, Bettina. She was 5. There are 2 monsters, she said. They have come for Rudy. Maybe symbolizing something. Again, the human child, so much cannier. The death says about this little girl who's 5 that 2 monsters may be symbolizing death. Rudy is about to die. Later, when the coat men left, the 2 boys, one 17, the other 14, found the courage to face the kitchen. They stood in the doorway. The light punished their eyes. It was strong light. It was Kurt who spoke. Are they taking him? Maybe his dad. They were talking to his dad in the kitchen. Maybe these were 2 officers who came to take their dad to join the army. Their mother's forearms were flat on the table. Her palms were facing up. Alex Steiner raised his head. It was heavy. His expression was sharp and definite, freshly cut. A wooden hand wiped at the splinters of his fringe, and he made several attempts to speak. Papa? But Rudy did not walk toward his father. He sat at the kitchen table and took hold of his mother's facing up hand. Alex and Barbara Steiner would not disclose what was said while the dominoes were falling like dead bodies in the living room. If only Rudy had kept listening to the door just for another few minutes, He told himself in the weeks to come, or in fact, pleaded with himself that if he'd heard the rest of the conversation that night, he'd have entered the kitchen much earlier. I'll go. He'd have said, please take me. I'm ready now to join the army instead of my dad. If he'd intervened, it might have changed everything. Three possibilities. Alex Steiner wouldn't have suffered the same punishment as Hans Huberman. Rudy would have gone away to school, and just maybe he would have lived if he had heard what was being said in the kitchen. These are the three possibilities. Again, Alex Steiner wouldn't have suffered the same punishment as Hans Huberman. They both were taken to the army. Rudy would have gone away to school. Rudy would have lived because, as we say, or as we said before, he will die soon. The cruelty of fate, however, did not allow Rudy Steiner to enter the kitchen at the opportune moment, at the suitable moment. He returned to his sisters and the dominoes. He sat down. Rudy Steiner wasn't going anywhere. Okay, the following part is the thought of Rudy naked. There had been a woman standing in the corner. She had the thickest braided hair I had ever seen. It rolled down her back, her hair, and occasionally, when she brought it over her shoulder, it lurked at her colossal breast like an overfed pet. In fact, everything about her was magnified. Her lips, her legs, her paved teeth. She had a large, direct voice. No time to waste. Come, which means come. She instructed them. Come, stand here. The doctor, by comparison, was like a balding rodent. He was small and nimble, pacing the school office with his maniac yet business-like movements and mannerisms. He was walking in the office, and he had a cold. Out of the three boys, it was difficult to decide which was the more reluctant to take off his clothes when ordered to do so. One of the boys had to take off his clothes. The first one looked, maybe all of them. The first one looked from person to person, from the aging teacher to the gargantuan nurse, to the pin-sized doctor, the small-sized doctor. The one in the middle looked only at his feet, and the one on the far left counted his blessings that he was in the school office and not a dark alley. The nurse, Rudy decided, was frightened. Who's first? She asked. Maybe they were going to take a vaccine or something. It was the supervising teacher, her Heckenstoller, maybe, a German name, who answered. He was more a black suit than a man. His face was a mustache. Examining the boys, his choice came swiftly. Schwarz means black. The unfortunate Jürgen Schwarz, this is his family name, maybe, Jürgen Schwarz, undid his uniform with great discomfort. He took off his uniform. He was left standing only in his shoes and underwear. Luckless plea was marooned on his German face. He wanted them to leave him, and Herr Heckenstoller asked the shoes, take off the shoes. He removed both shoes, both socks on die Unterhosen, said the nurse, and the underpants or the underwear. Both Rudy and the other boy, Olaf Spiegel, had started undressing now as well, but they were now near the perilous position of Jürgen Schwartz. Dangerous. The boy was shaking. He was a year younger than the other two, but taller. When his underpants came down, it was with abject humiliation that he stood in the small, cool office. His self-respect was around his ankles. The nurse watched him with intent, her arms folded across her devastating chest. The teacher ordered the other two to get moving. The doctor scratched his scalp, his head, and coughed. His cold was killing him. The three naked boys uh, were each examined on the cold flooring. They cupped their genitals. They had their parts, private parts, in their hands and shivered like the future. Between the doctor's coughing and wheezing, they were put through their faces. Breathe in, sniffle. Breathe out, second sniffle. This way, arms not or out now. A cough. I said arms out. Stretch out your a horrendous hail of coughing. The doctor was coughing. As humans do, the boys looked constantly at each other for some sign of mutual sympathy. They sympathized with each other. None was there. All three pried their hands from their penises and held out their arms. Rudy did not feel like he was part of a master race. We are gradually succeeding, the nurse was informing the teacher, in creating a new future. It will be a new class of physically and mentally advanced Germans, an officer class. Unfortunately, her sermon was cut short when the doctor seized or creased in half and coughed with all he might or his might over the abandoned clothes. Tears welled up in his eyes, and Rudy couldn't help but wonder. A new future? Like him, like this doctor? Are we going to be like him, as sick as he is? Wisely, he did not speak it. He was just thinking like this sick man. The examination was completed, and he managed to perform his first nude, Heil Hitler, in a perverse, sorry kind of way. He conceded that it didn't feel half bad. Stripped of their dignity, the boys were allowed to dress again, and as they were shown from the office, they could already hear the discussion held in their honor behind them. The doctor, the nurse, and the teacher were talking about them. They're a little older than usual, the doctor said, but I'm thinking at least two of them. The nurse agreed, the first and the third. Three boys stood outside, first and third. First was you, Schwartz, said Rudy. He then questioned Olaf Spiegel, who was third, me or you? Spiegel made a few calculations. Did she mean third in line or third examined? It didn't matter. He knew what he wanted to believe. That was you, I think. Cow shit, Spiegel, it was you. A small guarantee. The coachman knew who was third. The day after they visited him on the street, Rudy sat on his front step with Liesel and related the whole saga. He told her the whole story, even the smallest details. He gave up and admitted what had happened that day at the school when he was taken out of class. There was even some laughter about the tremendous nurse and the look on Jürgen Schwartz's face. For the most part, though, it was a tale of anxiety, especially when it came to the voices in the kitchen and the dead body dominoes. For days, Liesel could not shift one thought from her head. She was thinking about it all the time. It was the examination of the three boys, or if she was honest, it was Rudy. She would lie in bed, missing Max, wondering where he was, praying that he was alive, but somewhere standing among all of it was Rudy. She was thinking about Rudy standing there. He glowed in the dark, completely naked. She imagined him. There was great dread in that vision, especially the moment when he was forced to remove his hands. He was copying his parts, as you know. It was disconcerting to say the least, but for some reason, she couldn't stop thinking about it. And I'll stop here. Thank you very much.